Little green button. Thank you. What is the effect of persecution on Christians? Typically, it's not, but it can be. It's encouraging to me when I see people overcome persecution. Makes me want to do better. So tonight we're going to look at what the Scripture says about persecution. And it says a lot. It must be a very important subject. I'll start an introduction from the Wikipedia dealing with the definition of it. Just because Steve is mad at me, it's not a persecution that we're talking about. He's not mad at me. I'm just using him as an illustration. It is an organized thing. It's a systematic treatment of an individual or group by another individual or group. The most common forms are religious persecution, racism, political persecution, though there is naturally some overlap in these terms. It is a very influential thing. People stop. People react to group pressure. The New Testament especially deals with it, and I'm going to scope into what the New Testament says about it. The church at Smyrna in the second chapter is a picture of a persecuted church. And one of the things that I want to show, as we look at this, that it is very well known to God. I know you, he would say. I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you're rich. And the blasphemy by those who say they're Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear what you're about to suffer. That sounds hard. Do not fear. Does the Bible give you things that you don't have to do? Or does it give you a way out of these things? Is it possible to look at something that's coming and say to my brother, do not fear what folks are about to do to you? I have enough trouble going to the doctor. I have a fear of white coats. My blood pressure goes up because I can't just admit that I don't like doctors and I don't enjoy being there. So I fear doctors, and it affects me. Randy's not here tonight, so I'm going to his old office tomorrow morning. I have white coat syndrome. There he is. He's responsible for my white coat syndrome. When I see a white coat in a nurse, my blood pressure goes up. It's unpleasant to me. But Revelation starts off with making it clear, do not fear what you're about to suffer. Can we live in that format where we know what's going to happen to us, but don't fear, don't dread it? Behold, the devil is about to cast some of you into prison so that you will be tested. It's like going to the doctor's office. I will be tested tomorrow. You will have tribulation. It is not going to be pleasant. You will have tribulation for 10 days. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you a crown of life. Tribulation causes you to be fearful. It's hard not to be fearful. It is. And what's expected of you is that you'll be faithful unto death, even the rest of your life, even in view of the trouble that you're coming under. going to look at some passages that deal with that subject. If the world hates you, know that it hated me before you. If you were of the world would love you as its own. But because you're not of the world, but I chose you out of the world, therefore the world hates you. Remember the words that I said to you, a servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you. So we don't need to go any further. I don't like persecution. I've seen a lot of hard trouble from people persecuted. I've seen people just quit. The summary of what we're going to look at today is you cannot quit. If they keep my word, they will keep yours. These are the two disciples who are going out and preach. But these things they will do to you on account of my name, because they do not know him who sent me. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not have been guilty of sin. But now they have no excuse for their sin. Whoever hates me hates my Father also. If I had not done among them the works that no one else did, they would not be guilty of sin. But now they have sinned and hated both me and my Father. And the thing that he's trying to get across is they're going to hate you. And you're going to live among a people that hate you. And the result of that is persecution and fear, discouragement. Look at a few other passages talking about the result of persecution, result of living among people that hate you. In Luke 21, the Lord makes this statement, before all this, they will seize you and persecute you. And they will hand you over to the synagogues and put you in prison. And you will be brought before kings and governors, and on account of my name, all on account of my name. And so you will bear testimony to me. But make your mind up. Do not worry about it. Is that possible? Do not worry about it. Expect it. Persecution's coming. They're going to grab a hold of you, going to put you in jail because of what you think of me, Jesus said. Before all this, they will lay hands on you and persecute you. They will deliver you to the synagogues and prisons, and you will be brought before kings and governors, and all on account of my name. Terrifying thought. It's enough to give you white coat syndrome. There are more signs of persecution in particular as they labor as his disciples. You must be on your guard. You will be handed over to the local councils and flogged in the synagogues. And on account of me, you will stand before governors and kings as witnesses to them. And the gospel must first be preached to all nations. Wherever you are arrested and brought to trial, do not worry beforehand. Do not worry beforehand about what to say. Just say whatever is given to you at that time. For it is not you speaking, but the Holy Spirit. He's talking about the apostles. Brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. All men will hate you because of me, but he who stands firm to the end will be saved. There's some summary things here. Why would you think you have to be on your guard? That's right. Can you arm yourself so that you don't worry about these things? What do you mean train yourself, Randy? How do you stand firm during persecution? Can you picture yourself standing there in front of these people? Or your relative denouncing you? You ever thought what you would say if your family denounced you? Be on your guard. Don't worry about it. Stand firm during these persecutions. Okay, I think that's exactly the point. Should you rehearse what you're going to say? That's the point, isn't it? Be ready. Stand firm during these persecutions. Okay? Okay, that's not exactly the same context, but yes, that's right. Hebrews 10. Here's how you arm yourself. But recall the former days when, after you were enlightened, you endured a hard struggle with sufferings and sometimes being publicly exposed to reproach and affliction, and sometimes being partners with those so treated, where you had compassion on those in prison, and you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property, since you knew that. How did you get ready for persecution, according to this passage? Okay, so I didn't hear all that. Try that again. Recall the former days when you endured a hard struggle with suffering, sometimes publicly being exposed, and you got through it. That's the point. Remember how you did that, because it's going to happen again. How do you prepare your children for that? Okay? Does it get easier, as Ron said? Anybody want to debate that issue? Okay. What about you being able to joyfully accept the plundering of your property? Is that easy? It is not. These people were called to remember that hard struggle, being publicly exposed, people taking their stuff, and they've learned to joyfully accept the plundering of your property. Let's read forward. What would be the result of that exposure? What would they have to be told over and over again? Therefore, do not throw away your confidence. The problem with suffering tribulation, suffering persecution, is the temptation to throw away your confidence, to just turn and walk away. I can't do this, comes to mind. I'm going to run further. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let's run with endurance the race that is set before us. What is the result of persecution? What? Okay. Let us run with endurance. Why do you need endurance? How do you get endurance? You mean the Lord would let you go through things so that you could build endurance? I think He could. And the idea is you've got to run the race. No disciple seems pleased at the time, but though discipline seems pleased at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who've been trained by it. What is persecution but discipline? Is it a point of training? What happens after you've been trained by discipline? Bitterness? Anybody want to comment on that? What will be the result of discipline by a faithful father? Right. There is a result. Peace later. It doesn't feel good when you're going through it. But those who've been trained by it results in righteousness. We want each of you to do this, the same diligence to the very end in order to make your hope sure. We don't want you to become lazy, but initiate. I didn't cut that slide right. Imitate those who, through faith, inherited what has been promised. They have to work at it. They have to be trained to work at it. Hebrews 12:4, the New International Version. If you struggle against sin, you have not resisted to the point of shedding your blood. There is a degree of reason for these people to just keep on keeping on. They haven't resisted to the shedding of your blood. There is a great race that we train for. Hebrews 12:1-4 mentions that. And we look to the author and the perfecter of our faith. That's not what I want to go. One of these days I will get somebody to mash the button for me. I want to look at a few other points that deal with scriptures that are on the subject of faithfulness. There are reasons why you just keep on doing it. There are reasons why you just keep coming and grabbing a hold of what you got to do. There are warnings and encouragement that you just can't quit. You can't just stop and go home. Run for your life because you can do this, is the point that he makes here. Let me read a little bit of Hebrews 12, verse 1. Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every encumbrance, or the book training weights, and the sin which so easily entangles us, and let's run with endurance the race that is set before us. Who are these witnesses witnessing to? Okay. They're witnesses to God, not just to each other. The witnesses, they've proved their testimony, their witness, and we just need to push on. Lay aside every encumbrance and everything that would hinder us. How is it possible to endure and just keep on keeping on? How do you know you can do it? That's called training, isn't it? The point that he makes in this section, there are a whole bunch of witnesses before God. And they're witnessing to God that they were able to do it. And you can too. That's the point. They were able to do it, and so can you. So can I. And that's the reason he's encouraging people to be faithful. You have somebody that went before you. You can endure the cross if necessary. Jesus endured the cross, despising the shame, so that you may not grow weary in heart. Many before you, there are witnesses that it can be done. I like to read books about or watch stories. I don't read a lot of books, but I see stories about people who went out west, overcame fighting people, fighting Indians, that sort of thing. They were very capable, brave women, brave young people. And the point akin to that is consider them. You can do this too. They're no different from you. You've got to be faithful. You just can't quit. Many before you passed into this. And there is testimony of their faithfulness. And you can also. You may find it difficult. Therefore, consider their life. And you can do it also. And the reason that he gives is that you've not suffered so far as to lose your life. I'm not going to have time to go into all the points that I have written here, but why do you think this is happening to these people? This process of being trained through strenuous activity. Why is it necessary? What does he say that? Is it meant for their harm? Does the Lord permit this for any other reason than they are loved children and they're being trained? I think not. And you have forgotten the exhortation which is addressed to you as sons. My son, do not regard lightly the discipline of the Lord, nor faint when you are reproved by him. For those whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you endure. God deals with you as with sons. For what is there whom the Father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, then you're not sons. The Lord disciplines his children so that we can share in his holiness. Is it going to be fun? Are we going to enjoy all of it? How can you get through it if you don't enjoy it? What happens after the training? After the difficulties of training? It's called the peaceful joy of righteousness. The admonition in this section. Benny, you got something you want to say? Did you want to say something, Larry? Okay. Strengthen, make straight the things that you've got to do, because afterwards it yields a fruit of righteousness. Make straight paths. Therefore, strengthen the hands that are weak. Make straight paths for your feet, so that the limb that was lame may not be put out of joint. Put in your own minds, in your own words, what that says. How you do that? Strengthen, make straight, pursue, see to it. Form of exhortation. Practically, what does that mean? Hebrews, verse 13, I'm sorry. The point is in simple words. Shake it off. Resolve to get up. Resolve to keep moving. Get over it. Pursue peace with all men. How do you lay aside the weights that so easily beset you as you're training? How do you do that? How do you make straight paths for your feet? Okay? You want to illustrate that? Partially. Anybody else want to add to that? Keith?
Making your way straight. And
Sometimes you don't have to take it seriously. And what I mean by that is you don't have to respond to every disturbance in the world. Just live and go on with what you got to do. And the point is not to grow weary in doing that sort of thing. You can do it, but you'll want to stop doing it probably. In the middle of it, you'll get tired. Don't be distracted by that, is his point. Is it not tiring? Do you think Jesus didn't get tired of the reproach of sinners, reproach of the people he was dealing with? He did. Do not grow weary and lose heart. Many before you have endured, and you can do it also. These are people that are tempted to quit. Jesus was tired. Janet and I watch The Chosen, and we see some of this stuff in the programs that I hadn't thought about before. The difficulty of discouragement that he faced. And the point that needs to be made here is there are people that are hindrances who will drag you down. Get your mind off of that discomfort. You may be dealing with people who are absolutely part of the problem. You need to get away from them. You may have to change your whole life to get away from them. For consider him who has endured such hostility by sinners against himself, so that you may not grow weary and lose heart. Many before you have done that, and you can do it too. You cannot quit. It will be tiring. It will be discouraging as you face people, but you just cannot quit. You can't sit down. Jesus is that example of patient suffering who just kept on keeping on in spite of the discouragement. You haven't been, in Hebrews it says you haven't suffered to the point of death. And the point that he's making is you may have to, but you can't stop. How do you keep on keeping them? How do you keep on just and not quit? Because that's the point of these verses. Yes. How do you make straight paths for your feet out of this section of the lesson? How do you put your joint that's out back in where you can use it? Verse 13, make straight paths for your feet, so that your limb which is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. Okay. How do you do that? Are you saying it's time to quit? 5 minutes, thank you. I'll come back later. What did you say? What would the phrase shake it off be? How would you put that concept here? Shake it off, get up, and go on, but don't quit, is the point that he makes through this section. That's what later on people who are faithful face all the time, the temptation to quit. You may want to quit, but you just can't quit. That's what the whole section of Hebrews says. Consider the people who've done well with this temptation, this tribulation. There are people who pass through this. There are people who pass through health difficulties, who pass through getting fired, who pass through losing everything. Do they shake it off and go forward? Or do you sit down and just quit? The point he makes over and over simply, you can't stop. You may want to quit, but you just can't quit. Well, I've said all I want to say tonight. Yes. Okay. Okay. I appreciate the participation. It's kind of non-standard approach that we've used to go back and look at what it means to consider yourself, make corrections, look around you at people who have done it correctly and who have made it through this stuff. You can do this. Just don't quit. That's the point he makes. It's a real simple point, but it is so basic. People get discouraged. They look around at each other. Well, I'm good as he is. And they quit trying. They quit trying to make correction in life and keep trying to do faithful things because of discouragement, depression, whatever. We need to look around at who